Hans Grant here, and welcome to my camera comparison between the Xiaomi 12T and Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. Now, being about half the cost of the S22 Ultra, the Xiaomi 12T shouldn't be expected to compete with the camera system on the S22 Ultra, and definitely won't as far as zoom performance because it doesn't have the S22 Ultra's telephoto or periscope zoom lenses, but it does have a 108 megapixel main sensor with optical image stabilization, similar to the S22 Ultra. So we're going to see if you can get a good camera system that can compete fairly well with the S22 Ultra at about half the cost. We're also going to evaluate overall camera performance between these two camera systems. And I'm going to show you a bunch of photos and videos in both good and low light conditions so you can decide for yourself which of these two camera systems might be best for your needs. So let's go ahead and take a look at all the photos and videos and let me know what you think.
Sonic.
We're starting out with the ultra wide angle lens on each here, and the 12T is limited to 1080p recording with the ultra wide, while of course the Galaxy S22 Ultra can record all up to 4K. And so I'm just going to pan around here with both of these ultra wide angle cameras to give you an idea for how this looks like here. In this particular setting, you can see it's really nice and sunny outside, a lot of blue skies, a lot of greenery here, so it should give you a good idea of the color reproduction differences as well as the field of view here on these wide angle cameras. And so I'll go ahead and stop the video and switch back into the wide camera on each. Alright, we're back with the main cameras here on each at 4K 30 frames per second this time. The Galaxy S22 Ultra can record up to 4K 60, while the 12T is limited to 4K 30. So I'm just panning around here in this setting so you can get a feel for how these main lenses compare, how the auto exposure adjusts and all that. And so actually let's go ahead and pan over here to the right and we'll test out zoom here on that cell tower. So that you get about a 6x digital zoom here on the 12T. And that's about 6 times right there. So pretty stable, a little bit grainy for a digital zoom, but still very stable. Of course, on the S22 Ultra, you get a 3x optical right there, and a 10x optical right there, and a max 20x digital, which all looks very nice and stable and very clear and steady. And so let's go ahead and back this out on each, on the S22 Ultra, and let's back this out to 1x here on the Xiaomi. And let's go ahead and test autofocus here on the post with the 12T first. So there you go, pretty snappy autofocus there in a way. One more time, focused up, and one last time here. So pretty good autofocus and some pretty nice bokeh or natural subject separation or depth of field there. And now with the S22 Ultra, there we go, focused up and away, and focused up again, and one more time with S22 Ultra. So larger sensors here produce that really nice natural bokeh or background blur. And let's go ahead and walk down the stairs so we can test out the stabilization here at 4K on both of these phones. And let's go ahead and try to jog to try to stress them out a little bit and see what that looks like here. So there you go, video test outdoors on both the Xiaomi 12T and Galaxy S22 Ultra. Alright, so here's a quick test of the stabilization modes here on the 12T and S22 Ultra. This is limited to 1080p because we crop in on the sensors here to get that stabilization, but let's go ahead and jog to stress them out and see how stable they keep things. So there you go, there's just a quick test of the advanced stabilization here on each of the phones. And this is going to be a test at their max resolution and frame rates, which is 1080p 60 frames per second on the 12T and 4K 60 frames per second on the Galaxy S22 Ultra. And so I'm just going to pan around here to give you a feel for how these cameras are reproducing the scene as the changing lighting conditions here. With the light right behind me now, I can see how harsh that is and what that does to the picture quality and the exposure. And we'll keep going around so you can see what this looks like here, all the way back around to where we started, where you got a pretty even light and everything should be looking as good as possible. So let's go ahead and start walking to test the stabilization here, and they both are stabilized, so you can kind of see and compare how good the stabilization is and how they compare on each of these front-facing cameras. So there you go, there's a quick front-facing camera test on the Xiaomi 12T and Galaxy S22 Ultra. So here's a low light test of the rear cameras on the Xiaomi 12T and Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. And this is the ultra angle camera to start on each. And this is at 4K 30 frames per second. So I'm just going to pan around here so you can see side by side how each of these ultra angle cameras compare here, and give you a feel for what they look like here in this particular setting here at night and how they're faring into that really bright street light. And so the Xiaomi 12T, I cannot move between the lenses while actively recording, so I'm going to stop the video and we'll come back with the main camera. Alright, so we're back with the main camera here on each, and I'm just going to pan around here so you can see how these main cameras compare side by side. And obviously it's going to be a bit brighter now versus the ultra angle cameras because these sensors are a bit larger. They're going to let in a little bit more light, and you're going to clearly see the trees against that skyline a little bit more than you could when you saw the ultra wide angle cameras. So pan over here to the right, you can also see how these cameras are doing into that really bright street light, and both of these are flaring them out quite a bit considerably, a lot more than I thought they would, and more than probably a lot of other phones. So let's just go ahead and pan around this way, and we'll start walking to test stabilization and give a feel for how these cameras perform a much darker area. So obviously that was a very well lit area back there. And we're going to be moving over to a much darker area so you can see how these cameras perform with a lot less light, as well as how the stabilization looks here with less light. And you're probably going to see some micro jitters, which is pretty common with phones, especially in low light. And as you round this corner, it's much darker than the previous scene, but both these phones are definitely brightening things up much more than what I'm seeing with my own eyes. So you're probably seeing a good amount of noise because of that. And we'll pan up in the night sky. And again, there is some light pollution, but there are no clouds, so it should not be looking gray. You're probably seeing some noise, and in the viewfinder, a lot more noise on the S22 Ultra. That could be different once they actually process the video, but that's what I'm seeing here. And we'll go ahead and pan over here to the left, and you can see what this looks like here with some mixed lighting, a little bit accent lighting off the building, but a much darker alleyway here. And for some reason, the color tones are much warmer here on the S22 Ultra and a lot brighter, so with more noise. At least that's what I'm seeing in the viewfinder. But in this particular scene from both of these phones. So there you go, a quick 4K video test on the Xiaomi 12T and Galaxy S22 Ultra. So here's a low light test on the front facing cameras of the Xiaomi 12T and Galaxy S22 Ultra. This is being shot at their highest resolutions, which is 1080p on the 12T and 4K on the S22 Ultra. And I'm starting at my usual testing spot in some pretty good lighting here, so you can see how these cameras can do at night with some pretty decent amount of light here. As you can see, I've got a bunch of lights around me to the left and to the right of me. And so you can see how these cameras are performing in this particular ideal lighting situation at night. Let's go ahead and start walking so we can not only test stabilizations, and you can see how that looks side by side, but also we can move over to a bit darker area so you can see how these do with a little bit less light. I'll also be walking over by a water fountain here to my right so we can test out the microphones and how they sound with that background noise against the sound of my voice here. As we pan around, we can see how these cameras do into some really bright street lights behind me, as you can see. And looks like they're flooding them out more than some other front-facing cameras. Definitely, at least in the viewfinder, more on the S22 Ultra, but they are bright lights, so I mean, not much you can do about that. Now let's go ahead and move over here to the darker area here, so you can see how these cameras do in a much darker situation here side by side. And like most phones do, they're going to try to brighten up the scene a lot more than what I'm seeing with my own eyes. So because of that, you're going to see some noise and maybe some color temperature issues, especially through the viewfinder. For what I'm seeing in the S22 Ultra, it looks kind of a bit off as far as colors are concerned. But that's going to wrap up this camera comparison between the Xiaomi 12T and the Galaxy S22 Ultra. Let me know how you thought about how the 12T performed, being about 50% less cost price-wise than the S22 Ultra. So by no means do I think the 12T could outperform the S22 Ultra. I just want to give people a frame of reference and how big the gap really is in case they want to save some money and were interested in picking up the 12T if it's available in your region. And so I personally thought, like most of these camera comparisons and good light, a lot of the main cameras go back and forth, and they did here to me between these two during the day. And even in low light, the 12T impressed me with the night mode. It really was pretty close in low light with the night mode between both phones there in the main cameras. But pretty much everything else, from the zoom range to the video quality and all that, definitely goes to the S22 Ultra. But I think if you're looking to save some money and the 12T is an option in your region and you're pretty much mainly using the main camera, I think it's a very good option to save some money here. But let me know what you personally thought and how you thought the 12T compared it up against the S22 Ultra here. Leave your thoughts in the comments below and we can continue our conversation on there. And as always, thanks for watching.